This forbidden anime begins with Akira confessing to his crush, Nana Shirayuki. However, his opportunity goes down the drain when his big sister Rio arrives to pick him up from school. Realizing all is lost, Akira settles with saying goodbye to Nana. Then, to his surprise, she stops him. He immediately thinks his feelings have reached her. Sadly, his last light of hope gets snuffed out when she just expresses how envious she was that he had a sister as cool and popular as Rio. On the drive back home, Rio tells Akira how proud she is of him for trying to get a girlfriend. She then praises him for going for a girl who looks just like her, which immediately gets him all worked up. He immediately tries changing the topic by making Rio talk about her boyfriend instead. However, she quickly catches on and calls him out for it. Akira says it's the only thing he can do to fight back against her teasing. In his room that night, Akira admires a photo of Nana while watching a cultured film and training his sword hero. However, he stops midway because he accidentally imagines her as Rio calling him out for desperately wanting to date her. Suddenly, as if on cue, Rio barges into his room to ask for the next volume of the book she's reading. Caught with his pants down, Akira can only try to play things cool. He calmly tells her to knock first before entering his room. Rio says she did, but he wasn't answering, blaming him for being too immersed in what he's watching. She then casually looks at what he's watching and says the actress looks just like her. Akira immediately gets defensive, and says she doesn't. He then calls her out for being too self-conscious, but Rio doesn't back down and even proudly claims her personality is bigger than the actress. She then can't help but tease him about actually training his sword while watching a girl who looks like just her. Then, Rio focuses her attention on the issue at hand, and that's Akira's exposed sword hero. She can't help but praise him for how well it has grown. Akira tells her to stop staring at his sword hero and then pauses the film he's watching. Rio asks him why he did that, and says they should watch it together, but he says there's no chance they'll do that. So, Rio grabs his sword instead and says she'll just help him train it. Akira is shocked that she would do such a thing, but he continues to keep his cool and tries to put her off by saying it'll be unhygienic for her hands. However, Rio says she doesn't mind at all. Having taken care of him since he was young, there's nothing he can do that will be unhygienic to her. So, Akira isn't able to stop Rio from training his sword hero. Realizing he must be shy, she encourages him to feel free and let his sword hero release its mana whenever he's ready. She even praises him for his self-control and says her boyfriend's sword hero would not have gone that far. Just after she says that, Akira's sword hero releases its mana all over her hand. True to her word, Rio isn't bothered by it at all and even praises him for releasing so much mana. Then, Rio's boyfriend calls to let her know he'll be visiting them next week, and she looks forward to introducing him to Akira. The next day at school, Akira looks at Nana and suddenly accidentally sees her as Rio again. Then, later that week, Rio's boyfriend finally visits, and their entire family has a great time. In the evening, Rio goes to Akira's room so she can talk about how wonderful her boyfriend is. Akira is annoyed that she's in his room again and tells her to leave, but she says it's fine because they haven't hung out like that for ages. Rio continues teasing Akira until eventually, he gets fed up and vows not to let her keep having her way. He threatens to grab her twin personalities if she doesn't leave, but Rio doesn't back down and even dares him to. So, Akira grabs them, but to his surprise, she grabs his sword hero too. Not wanting to be outplayed, he also grabs her Medusa but is surprised it's bald. Rio says it's because that's what her boyfriend prefers. After saying he doesn't care about their preferences, he starts fiddling with her Medusa. Rio is surprised that Akira actually knows what he's doing. It seems she's assumed he would be oblivious to such things and can't hide how proud she is that he's knowledgeable. Eventually, Akira's banjo fiddling skills make Rio's Medusa reach enlightenment. She can't help but feel embarrassed that Akira manages to make her reach such heights. Then, after seeing Akira's stunned and longing face, Rio asks if he wants to make his sword hero spar with her Medusa. She points out it'll be difficult to leave his sword hero in such an enraged state. Ryo asks him to get his protective gear and let her watch him put it on, which greatly impresses her. Once his sword hero is fully protected, he lets him start the sparring session. Ryo tells Akira to take things slow because his sword hero is too buff. Despite preparing herself, Ryo is still surprised by the reach of Akira's sword hero. She didn't expect her Medusa to get so overwhelmed and ends up letting out plenty of cultural sounds. Akira then asks if he can increase the speed of his sword hero's attacks, and Ryo says he can't because if he does, she won't be able to keep her voice down. However, she caves in and lets him do so after he begs her cutely for it. Then, when the time is right, Akira can no longer hold it in and lets his sword hero release all of its mana. Since they're still both ready for another sparring session, Ryo tells Akira to let his sword hero attack her Medusa again, but this time, using Cerberus style. They continue with the sparring session until they once again reach enlightenment together. Once they're done, Ryo praises Akira for his sword hero's amazing battle performance. She can't help but be proud of how ready he is to face the world of culture now. On the other hand, Akira feels awkward that he had to spar with Ryo. However, she tells him not to be shy because it shouldn't be a big deal for them who are very close. Then, Ryo points out that Akira's sword hero is still in rage mode. He blames it for it because she talks with such a cultural voice. To take responsibility, Ryo says they should go to a hotel instead, so they can stop holding back and go all out like frenzied rabbits with their sparring sessions. On their way to look for a hotel, Ryo learns that Akira has never been to such a place of culture before. She takes it upon herself to make sure she teaches him everything he needs to know about such a place to prepare him for the future. When they finally get to their hotel room, the two go to clean up. While in the bathroom, Ryo uses her karaoke skills on Akira's sword hero to ease its swelling. She tells him not to be shy and let it release its clogged mana whenever he's ready. Since it's the first time he's ever had that done to him, Akira can't hold his sword hero back from releasing its mana. He feels ashamed and frustrated that things happened too quickly. However, Ryo tells him not to feel bad and says he has way better stamina than her boyfriend. After that, they get out of the bath, and on her way out, Akira can't stop himself from staring at Ryo. When they get to the magical room, Ryo can't stop herself from calling out Akira for staring at her earlier. Tired of being looked down on, Akira takes the lead. However, it seems that Ryo was actually looking forward to him doing so. Before they continue, Ryo warns Akira that from that point onward, since they're no longer at home, she won't hold herself back from letting out plenty of cultural sounds anymore. Akira doesn't seem to care and simply focuses on showing off his oyster-eating skills on Ryo's Medusa, which immediately melts her brain. Unable to hold back the culture rising inside her, Ryo tells him to stop because she wants his sword to launch an attack already. This time around, Ryo is the one who puts protective gear on Akira's sword hero. Since she's so proficient with it, he can't help but ask if she does the same thing to her boyfriend. She feels uncomfortable answering the question and tries to dodge it by asking why he'd ask such a weird question out of nowhere. She then asks him if he did that because he was jealous, and Akira immediately denies her allegations. With his sword hero's protective gear on, Ryo finally lets it spar with her Medusa. While that happens, she asks what fighting style is his preference. Akira says he's new to these sparring sessions and doesn't have a particular fighting style that he likes the most. Ryo says her favorite is the one they're trying that time, and that's the crouching tiger drilling dragon style. Akira says he's not a fan of it because he feels awkward to have Ryo's face right in front of him. As things quickly spiral out of control, Ryo can no longer stop her mind from getting muddled. Then out of nowhere, Ryo asks Akira if he wants to practice CPR with her while they continue with the sparring match. Akira doesn't want to, so he lets his sword hero attack more fiercely in the hopes of making her forget about it. The relentless attacks of her Medusa drive Ryo mad. When he tells Akira about it, he blames her for making so much cultural sounds. Eventually, Ryo asks Akira for CPR again. Seeing how she's struggling to gasp for air this time, he gives in to her request. Then, Ryo notices that Akira is about ready to let his sword hero release all of its mana. She tells him to go all out and not be scared to unleash everything at her Medusa, and so he lets his sword hero unleash a relentless barrage of attacks. Of course, when the time is right, Akira's sword hero releases all of its mana and they both reach the height of enlightenment. Ryo praises him again for releasing so much mana. She then goes on to use her karaoke skills on his sword hero to power it up again for another round of sparring.
Subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like. It really helps the channel.